With 50 days until the election, new polling is painting a clearer picture of the states still in play in the 2020 race. Our CBS Battleground Tracker calls Florida and North Carolina toss-ups. Recent numbers out of Texas also show a tight race between President Trump and Joe Biden there. For more on what this means, let's bring in Jim Defede, Renuka Rayasam, and Nick Ochsner. Jim is an investigative reporter for our Miami station, WFOR. Renuka covers Texas politics for Politico, and Nick is chief investigative reporter for our Charlotte, North Carolina affiliate, WBTV. Welcome to you all. Renuka, Texas has voted for a Republican in every presidential election since 1980, yet recent polls show a close race between President Trump and Joe Biden. What are the factors which might put Texas in play?
Sure. Yeah, that's right. I mean, the last time a Democrat won presidential election here in Texas was Jimmy Carter. And so it's a very conservative state. And I think most folks who are watching the state closely are looking for new voters, people who haven't voted in previous elections, maybe young voters. And this has always been for Texas Democrats for years and years, sort of the promised land for them. What they've pointed to is for making a case that Texas is in play, that there's a low percentage of people that go to the polls here, and for them, turnout is key. And some of the changes we are seeing in this state are suburbs, fast-growing suburbs around Dallas and Houston and San Antonio are also shifting as people move from other states and as young voters come of age. And I think that those are some of the key things that people will be watching. But one of, I think, the really important things that to think about is that Texas is it's a big state. It's going to be hard for a Democrat to win here. They're going to have to spend a lot of money. And rural Texas voters are still very reliably conservative. And so that will be a huge challenge for Biden or any Democrat statewide here.
It's interesting, Renuka, the Biden campaign recently beefed up its staff there. Does that affirm, though, that the Lone Star State might actually be in play?
Yeah, so Biden has staffed up here in Texas. But, I will say Texas Democrats complained during the convention that they felt like Texas Democrats didn't get enough airtime nationally. I think a lot of them feel like it's been a little bit late in the game. I mean, we are, just a few short weeks away from Election Day. Early voting starts pretty soon here. And they feel like it's maybe in some cases too little, too late. But I think what Biden wants to do is show that he can at least narrow the lead a bit. The polls have shown that for a while Biden was in the lead. Now they're showing that Trump's back in the lead. It's definitely closer than any previous election in recent years for a Republican. But this is a state Trump has to win. If Trump loses Texas, then he loses the presidency. But I think, like I said, what people are watching here is that it's a huge state. There's 254 counties, a lot of different media markets. A Democratic candidate, some have estimated would need to spend $20, $30, $40 million in Texas to keep it in play in November. And, we are seeing some movement by the Biden campaign, but we aren't seeing those huge numbers and that huge investment. And we didn't see that early on.
Well, Jim, Florida, of course, is another key state. It always is a key state. Polls there have tightened in recent weeks. And now you have billionaire former presidential candidate Michael Bloomberg pledging $100 million to the Biden campaign. So how will that money be spent?
Well, my general manager is very happy at the local TV station. The more money being spent in Florida, the better. Look, I think a lot of that money will be used to sort of replace some of the money that the Biden campaign would normally be spending here in Florida. It'll free up Biden to spend money in other battleground states if Bloomberg comes in with $100 million. But even at $100 million, there's only so much airtime that you can buy. A lot of what I'm hearing about is that they're hoping that the super PAC formed by Bloomberg will not just spend it on TV commercial time, but will also help build out more of a ground game. One of the things that the Democrats are sorely lacking in Florida is a get out the vote machinery that is more traditional. Republicans have been doing door knocking. You don't see that in Florida. Florida has not been sending people out door to door to really contact people. You need to hire folks, maybe not to go to doors in a pandemic, but certainly to increase phone banking. So I think you're going to see a lot of money spent on TV, that's for sure. But there's other things that can be targeted. And certainly one of the things that needs to be targeted is increasing Biden support among the Hispanic community here.
Right, because the Democratic presidential nominee is struggling, as you know, Jim, to keep a hold on the Latino vote there. Why exactly might that be? We're talking about actually a very diverse Latino vote within Florida.
That's right. Let me give you some sense of the numbers that we're talking about here. Hillary Clinton won the state of Florida, Hispanic voters within Florida. She lost the state overall, but she won among Hispanic voters by 27 points. When Barack Obama won Florida in 2012, he won Hispanic voters by anywhere for, I think it was around 24, 25 percentage points. Joe Biden is not doing as well. That NBC News Marist poll from a week or so ago that had the race tied actually had Donald Trump winning Hispanics. Now, that poll to me seems like an outlier. I wouldn't believe that Donald Trump is truly winning across the entire state among Hispanics. But other polling that I've seen places the number at around 16 percentage points. In other words, Biden is ahead among Hispanics by 16 points. That's good, but that's not enough. You need to run up that Hispanic vote, particularly in the I-4 corridor, where you have Puerto Rican voters, you have a diverse community. Mexican voters are increasing in numbers, Mexican Americans. So you need to do that. One thing that the Trump campaign has done very successfully in Florida, I'll give them credit for this, they've reached out to evangelical voters who are Cuban American. They've really raised their numbers among Cuban American supports. Donald Trump won among Cuban American supporters the last time, but Hillary Clinton didn't get blown out. Joe Biden appears to be getting blown out among Cuban American voters and even among some Venezuelan voters. And I think that message that the Republicans have been hitting the Democrats with about socialism has had an effect. Biden needs to counteract that, both in terms of increasing his outreach, which he really hasn't done well in Florida. He's been criticized in Florida, especially among Hispanic leaders, for not doing more. He's playing catch up now. He needs to do that in these final weeks if he wants to win Florida.
Well, Nick, let me turn to you. The debate about absentee voting has intensified where you are there in North Carolina. The state attorney general is having to tell voters to not act on President Trump's advice for voters in the state to go to polling places after they send in their absentee ballots. How does the state track a voter's ballot?
Yeah, and it's not just the state attorney general. It's also our state board of elections, after President Trump said that the first time in North Carolina, the board of elections came out and said, don't do that. We have ways for you to track your vote. There are a couple ways. One, you can call and see if your vote's been received. But actually, just in the last week, the State Board of Elections has rolled out a new online tracking tool where voters can track their absentee ballots online. The state has the ability to tell if your if your ballot's been received, if it's on file at the Board of Elections and will be counted on Election Day. So you have the Attorney General, the State Board of Elections, a number of other state officials saying, don't do what the president is saying to do.
All right, really remarkable developments there. Jim Defede, Renuka Rayasam, and Nick Ochsner, really good to have you all with us. Thanks very much.